Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 20th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 20, Spirals, Mines and Hardware. The next day Izumi settled back into her usual routine. Getting up early for a morning jog around campus, much to the dismay of Achiko, Tsuyu, Himiko and Momo, since they lost a snuggle buddy. But, if she wanted to get stronger and be able to use more of One for All, she needed to train and exercise more. Yesterday had been busy. After Denki's out-of-the-blue inspirational speech, the entire class was filled with renewed vigor to do better and prepare for next time. Yes, even Minoru. Which was annoying as she really hoped that he would drop out. Seriously, more than a week in and all the girls knew he was a pervert. Of course, the day did have its less than pleasant moments. There was a general education student who spoke a bit too loudly in the cafeteria and said some rather insulting things about their class and insinuated that they were responsible for 13's death. He was promptly told to shut up by lunch rush and told to speak to the principal. And whilst he was sadly seen again afterwards, he was a lot quieter. Izumi guessed that he was now on probation, since, he talked shit about 13's death. Still, what he had said had left the class shaken. Their daily sessions with Hound Dog were going well, and they've already had one weekly session with a professional therapist. But it'll be a long time before the scars caused by the USJ heal. Getting back into her regular routine helped her regain a sense of normality. So there she was, jogging around the UA campus, wearing shorts and one of her joke t-shirts that had sports bra written on it, with Durandal by her side. There were still a few hours before lessons started, which gave her plenty of time to get ready for the day. It was on today's run that she ran into someone she wasn't expecting, Nire, who was also jogging a bit ahead of her, wearing a light blue sports bra and shorts that were very form-fitting, which made looking at anything other than her rear rather difficult. This continued for a bit before Nire turned her head slightly and saw Izumi behind her. She smiled at her before slowing down a bit so that the two could jog side by side. Hey Izumi. Nice to see you. Yeah, nice to see you too, Nire, Izumi said, trying her best to focus on Nijire's face and not her chest. I didn't think you were the kind of person who would go out for a morning jog. I'm full of surprises, Nire replied with a smile. Since my quirk uses my stamina, I need to make sure that I have a lot of it. Exercising daily helps me to build my pool and gives me more to work with. Ah, I see. That makes sense, Izumi said, so the more stamina she had the longer she could use her quirk. Yep, that's how it works, Nire said, causing Izumi to realize she muttered that last part out. So, you won't mind if I tag along for a bit? Jogging by myself like this can get lonely. Izumi blushed slightly. Sure. I'm fine with that, she said nervously. Nire smiled as she formed up beside her. The two jogged in silence for a few minutes before Izumi spoke up. So, how have you been doing? I've been managing, Nire replied with a frown, but I can't help but feel that I should have done more to help save 13. I just stood there whilst Argonaut killed her. I didn't even know he was there until it was too late. Izumi frowned. She agreed with her, there had to have been something they could have done to save 13, but what? The entire class had been scattered across the USJ, leaving only Durandal, Nire, and later Horigaramu and several UA sentinels. And even then, that wasn't enough to save her. There had to have been something they could have done. I wish I could say you could have, but, sadly I can't, Durandal said somberly. Argonaut is a stealthy bastard. You don't know he's coming until he's right on top of you. We're lucky he likes to make his presence known before he kills someone. Helps feed his ego. He was probably standing behind 13 waiting for the perfect opportunity to drop in. He said, honestly I'm pissed that the real Argonaut wasn't there himself. It's unlike him to use clones and Terminators like that. Yeah, about that, Nire said. There's something I would like to talk to you about, Izumi. About your robot companion, Durandal. This is about what I said during the USJ, isn't it? Durandal asked. Wait, what? Izumi said, sounding surprised. Durandal. What did you say and why didn't you tell me about it? During the USJ we were attacked by a clone of Argonaut, although at the time I thought it was the real thing. Durandal explained. I taunted the bastard, and I may have flat out said that Paxton made me, whilst Nire was around. And then I may have healed her, then confirmed to her that I was made by Paxton. Sorry, but I didn't want to add more pressure to your plate. You did what? Izumi blurted. They were surprised to keep his true creator a secret, not just flat out tell someone that, yes, I was created by the man who almost took over the world. At least they were keeping the secret of one for all better than this. Yeah, I'm still looking for an answer for how you were able to heal me? Nire said, because that felt a lot like Recovery Girl's quirk. That's because it was Recovery Girl's quirk, Izumi replied, realizing there was no point in hiding the quirk emulator from her since, by the sounds of it, she already knows that Durandal was made by Paxton. The body Durandal is using has a prototype quirk emulator installed. A device that can emulate people's quirks. He can use quirks? Nire gasped. I thought that was some kind of advanced nanotech? How can a robot even emulate a quirk anyway? No idea. All I knew about it was that the man was making a device that could emulate quirks and he put it into this body. Durandal replied. It didn't come with an instruction manual, so it took me a few seconds to understand how to use it. For humans, that doesn't sound long, but for an AI like me, it was more like hours than seconds. Be glad the man is dead and this shell has the only quirk emulator in the world. I dread to think what a perfected emulator can do. Oh my, that is a good thing, isn't it? Nire said. Still, how did you find yourself working with Izumi? A combination of me finding him whilst I was clearing Takoba Municipal Beach Park and a biometric lock that sadly forces him to obey me, Izumi replied. Yeah, still miffed about that last part, Durandal added sadly. There's not much I can do about it. It was pre-programmed into me and can't really be removed. I'm just surprised that he didn't lock it to himself. Guess even he makes mistakes from time to time. I see, Nire said. She was still struggling to believe that a robot could emulate a quirk, but, seeing that she saw it in action, it must be possible. But then she got distracted. Wait, you're the one who cleaned Takoba Beach? Well, yes, Izumi replied nervously. Of course, Nire would get distracted by that. I couldn't afford a gym membership, so I decided to clear the beach. You'll be surprised by how many different muscle groups you can build by hauling different kinds of trash. Wow, that's impressive. Nire beamed. Now when summer comes around and it gets warmer we can go visit it. It'll be perfect for showing off my new swimsuit. Wah! Izumi said, realizing that Nire had gotten herself distracted. Say, do you have a swimsuit? Nire asked with a smile. I think you should get one. I think you'd look super cute in an emerald green bikini. www what? Izumi stuttered, not expecting her to just casually suggest that. Her. In a bikini. No, there's no way she would be that comfortable wearing something that revealing or skimpy. Plus, her scars would be on display for everyone to see. I am sorry, but I don't think I'm comfortable wearing something like that. Oh, sorry, Nire said. Didn't mean to make you uncomfortable there. It's okay, Izumi said nervously, trying to get the mental image of her wearing a bikini out of her head. No, she will not wear one. She would die from embarrassment and is totally not picturing what Achiko, Himiko and Tsuyu would look like in swimsuits as well. Totally not doing that. Please stop doing that, brain. I'm just not comfortable showing off that much skin. Okay then, Nire said, sorry about that. So, what quirks can Durandal emulate? Not many, I'm afraid. The emulator was a prototype after all, Durandal replied, realizing that she was now back on topic. Man, this girl gets distracted easily. I've got Achiko's zero gravity, Yui's size, Recovery Girl's heal, as well as 2 quirks from her old school, a minor shield and teleport small object. He explained. There's also Mechanist's Techno Rearrange quirk, and 13's Black Hole quirk. Wait, you have Mechanist's and 13's quirk? Izumi asked, sounding shocked. This was news to the girl. How? Oh yeah, forgot to tell you that, didn't I? Durandal said. Sorry about that. But yes, I do indeed have Mechanist's and 13's quirk. Mechanists allowed him to break down mechanical components and reassemble them in whatever configuration he wanted. But he was unable to use it until his body was half mechanical, and he can only use it to repair his cybernetics, not upgrade them. If he could do that, then we wouldn't need to ask May to work on a hardware update for me. Which isn't a problem for me, he explained. It's how I'm able to repair myself as well as make that chainsaw during the USJ attack. His quirk was already loaded into the emulator, so I guess that was a test to see if it could work, he explained. As for 13's quirk, some of her blood splattered onto me when she was killed and was apparently enough for the emulator. I can't use her quirk, but I'm not deleting it. It's all that's left of her now. Oh, so that's how you were able to repair yourself, Nire said somberly. Still, it's a good thing you're keeping 13's quirk. Even if you can't use it, it's good to keep it around, she said, glad that 13's quirk was still around in some form. So, what can't you use? Well, if you're worried about me using your quirk, don't worry, I can't, Durandal replied. I can emulate Denki's electrification quirk, but I can't emulate it long enough to build up a significant charge for it to be effective. Same with Inasa's whirlwind. There's also Nito's copy, but that's redundant. Oh wow, that is not many, Nijaya remarked, and they're all emitter quirks. What, did you think a robot like me could emulate mutations and transformations? Durandal said, seriously, I doubt even Paxton could make a robot that could emulate those. Oh, well, that's good to hear, Nijaya said before they heard something flying overhead. Looking up, they saw a JSDF dropship fly overhead. They're here already? She said, sounding surprised. The sports festival isn't for another 2 weeks. They're probably a recon team sent in to survey the area, Durandal replied. They do need to plan out where to deploy their troops during the festival. I don't know how I feel about having the military on site for the sports festival, Izumi remarked. I know Argonaut is dangerous and all that, and once worked for a man who tried to take over the world with an army of robots, but do they really need to be here? We're heroes, not soldiers. I think they don't want to take any chances, Durandal said. He had robots backing him up and was acting uncharacteristically. I think they're worried that someone's taken Paxton's mantle and is bringing Avalon back. I know that, Izumi said, but still, it scares me having the army around. I know they're here for our protection. But, if this is our defense, what are we expecting to defend against? Nijaya nodded with a shudder. Yeah, it does make you wonder what they're expecting to attack us if they have the top 10 heroes and the JSDF here, she said. Oh well, all we can do is hope that no one is dumb enough to attack the sports festival. Yeah, Izumi said as they carried on their jog around campus. The rest of the day went by as normal. They had their normal lessons plus heroics, which Denki had to sadly sit out due to his missing eye. But it was fine, this was expected after all. At least he was getting a new one over the weekend. So, now that we've had time to recover, who threw that ship in the flood zone? Hanta asked as the class made their way back to their dorm. That would be Achiko, Ribbit, Tsuyu replied. That was Achiko. Denki gasped as most of the class turned towards the gravity girl with shocked looks. I would have thought that was Izumi. How did you see that? Kyoka asked, holding Denki's hand as she led him to the dorm. You had lost half of your vision by then. Right, like even I could miss someone yeeting a ship halfway across the USJ, Denki said. Yeah, that was so hot-blooded. Inasa added loudly. Achiko chuckled nervously as she rubbed the back of her head. Come on guys, it wasn't a big deal. Big deal, big deal. Minoru said, you threw a ship at Argonaut before taking a hit from Nomu. How did you not get turned into pastes after being punched by that thing? I'm not really sure, Achiko replied, ignoring the shocked looks from the others. I was desperate to protect Izumi from that thing, so I just pushed her out of the way. I have no idea how I survived that punch unharmed. I'm sure we can find out what happened, Izumi said with a smile. If we can do that, we can find out how you can replicate it. It'll give you a very good defensive move, she said, although, there is something else I would like to know. You used your quirk on that ship and you didn't suffer from any negative effects. You wouldn't be able to tell me what your weight limit is? Achiko looked deep in thought for a few moments. You know, I don't really know my limit. I was never really allowed to try it on anything really big. The heaviest object I've used it on was a flatbed truck, and even then, that was when I was younger. I've never really been able to test my weight limit, as no matter what I lifted, I never felt any ill effects, and I only really started to suffer after several hours of continuous use. Looks like we're going to have to find out your weight limit, Izumi said, writing something down in her notebook that wasn't there moments ago. You can't really improve if you don't know what your limits are. I managed to book a half-hour quirk testing session at Ground Beta, so I should be able to bring you along as well. Several of Izumi's classmates looked at her with shock. Why, you managed to book an entire training ground for half an hour? Toru said, sounding surprised. How? I just asked Gran Torino if I could use one to help Chihiro work on her quirk, Izumi replied calmly, and he said yes, she said before she noticed everyone was looking at her. What? Izumi Minas said, that is, totally not a normal thing to do. Plus, didn't May say that she had Durandal's hardware upgrade ready? Momo added. Oh, don't worry, that's scheduled for later, Izumi replied. So Achiko, you want help finding out the limits of your quirk? Achiko quickly nodded. Sure. Better to find out now than later. Izumi beamed before she took Achiko's hand. Then come with me please, she said before she dragged the gravity girl towards the changing rooms. The rest of the class watched on with surprise. Well, Izumi looked happy, Ijiro remarked as the two girls rushed off. Yui added with a slight smile. She's analyzing quirks, so yeah, she's happy, Hitoshi remarked. If there's one way to make her happy, it's to give her a quirk to analyze. Everyone seemed satisfied with that answer. Well, everyone save for Minoru, who was crying. Come on. They're probably using this as an excuse to make out. Why can't they be straight like Dashi said before he was silenced by a karate chop to the back of the head, courtesy of Nito. Nito said as he looked at the hand he just used to karate chop Minoru. That's odd. What is it? Momo asked as Rikido picked up the unconscious body of Minoru and carried him off towards the dorm. Do you need me to make some wipes? No, Nito replied. It's just that, I have a strange feeling that I've been on the receiving end of a karate chop to the back of the head before. Which is odd, as I clearly remember never having that happen to me, he said before he shook his head. It's probably nothing. Meanwhile, at Ground Beta, Gran Torino stood at the entrance as he watched Izumi, Durandal, Achiko and Chihiro walk up to him wearing their gym uniforms. You zygotes ready? He asked with a smile. Izumi smiled as she nodded her head. Yep. He's Gran Torino, Chihiro said, sounding confused. The one you said kicked All Might in the face like it was nothing, she said. She knew this man matched the description she was given of him, but still, he looked old. How could an old man put fear into All Might of all people? Yep, that's me, Gran Torino said with a smirk. That old lump wasn't exactly what you would call smart when he was in school. Still isn't. So kicking some more sense into him shouldn't hurt. Chihiro shuddered. Okay, I completely believe you now. That's only half of it, Achiko added. He had us playing dodgeball yesterday. With him as the ball. I don't think any of us could keep up with him. We found out what it's like to be pachinko balls, Izumi said, remembering just how badly they were curb-stomped yesterday. Even All Might felt sympathetic to them, as he knew Gran Torino was going easy on them. Gods help them if he ever decides to go all out. What, I did say that if you can dodge me you can dodge a punch, Gran Torino said with a smirk. You lot need to work on your dodging and mobility. Anyway, you said you wanted to experiment with your quirks. Izumi nodded. Yep. Well, not me personally. Initially I just wanted to help Chihiro here, but I brought Achiko along once we found out she doesn't know the current limits of her quirk. Why did I agree to this? Chihiro asked, her blue skin looking a bit pale. You're the one who asked for quirk analysis after Nijire said being in the management course won't protect you from her, Izumi replied. Oh, right. That I did, Chihiro said with a sigh. So, any ideas on how I can make my quirk stronger? A few. But I think you should tell Gran Torino what your quirk is so he can help out as well, Izumi said, notebook in hand that wasn't there before. Gran Torino nodded. Can't exactly offer you any help if I don't know how to help you. Chihiro nodded. Okay. My quirk is called Minefield. It allows me to set up an invisible minefield along any surface I touch. Be it a street, wall, or building, I can lay upwards of up to 1,000 mines per field and I can see where each mine is at all times. But I can only have one minefield up at a time. I can't detonate each mine individually, only the entire field, and each mine is no stronger than a cracker snap. So, my guess is that you want to make your mine stronger then, Gran Torino said. Well, it'll be a good thing to know. Even if you're in the management course, finding out how to make your mine stronger will be a good idea, just so you don't accidentally find out later in life, he said before turning to Achiko. And what do you need help with? Finding my weight limit, Achiko replied. I've never been able to find out what my maximum limit is due to never being allowed to use it on anything big. So far the largest thing I've ever lifted was that ship in the USJ. Okay then, Gran Torino said as he got out his phone. I'll organize a few things for you to try out. In the meantime we can work on Chiharu's quirk. Follow me, he said, waving the four to follow him. As the four walked deeper into ground beta, Izumi inquired more into Chiharu's quirk. Okay, so you want to make your explosions stronger, but don't know how. Izumi said. What are your parents' quirks? She asked. Finding out about her parents' quirks and how they worked might help in finding out how Chiharu could make her explosions stronger. My father's was a lot like mine, but instead of making mines, it's light sources. He could cover walls with all kinds of lights of different size, shape, strength, intensity, color and type. But he could only place up to 50 different lights. Chiharu replied. My mother's allowed her to bestow explosive properties onto anything she touched and could detonate them at will. Her explosions aren't strong, but they're a lot stronger than mine. Okay, Izumi said as she wrote something down in her notebook, noting the venom in the girl's voice when she mentioned her mother. So it's obviously a combination of her parents' quirks. By the sounds of it, her mother's explosions are all the same size and strength, but her father's clearly operate differently as he could change the strength of his lights. But how? Is her muttering normal? Chiharu asked as Izumi muttered up a storm. Achiko nodded. You get used to it. Chiharu, Izumi suddenly said, causing the blue-skinned girl to yelp slightly. Did your father ever tell you how his quirk worked? No, Chiharu replied with a frown. He never got the chance to. He died 11 years ago, during Avalon's invasion of Japan. Oh, my gods! Achiko gasped, covering her mouth with her hands in shock. Izumi and Gran Torino meanwhile gave her a somber look. I'm sorry to hear that, Izumi said with a frown. You must have loved him a lot? Yes. Yes, I did, Chiharu replied. It's why I want to make my quirk stronger. Even though I'm in the management course, I wanted to get stronger, for him. Don't worry, we'll help you, Achiko said with a smile, knowing what it's like to lose a parent but still wanting to make them proud. We've got Izumi here after all. I'm sure she can come up with something. Chiharu smiled. Thank you, Achiko, she said, glad that she had friends who cared about her. She turned towards Izumi. So, do you have any ideas that could help me? Indeed I do have an idea, but I'm not sure if it will work, Izumi replied as they came to a stop at a T-junction. You said that you can lay a maximum of 1,000 mines. Well, what if you tried to combine mines together, she said. If I'm right, by combining them you should end up with a much larger explosion. Chiharu looked at Izumi with a confused look on her face as the gears inside her mind started to move. She then looked down at her hands before crouching down and placing one against the floor. She stood up moments later looking shaken. It worked. I combined them into a single mine. That's fantastic. Izumi beamed. How many did you use? 1,000, Chiharu replied, which caused Izumi and Achiko to pale slightly, which now that I think about it, might not have been a good idea, she said nervously. Realizing they now had a single mine of unknown strength hidden around them. Let's move away from here before we detonate the mine, shall we? Gran Torino said, pointing down one of the streets. The three girls nodded before they followed him away from the T-junction. Chiharu had the foresight to put the mine in the middle of the junction well away from them, and Gran Torino had called to warn Yue that there would be an explosion of unknown size and power at ground beta. Once the five of them had gotten to what they hoped would be a safe distance away from the mine, they all bunkered down inside a building looking down the street towards the T-junction. Okay, I hope we're far enough away from it, Izumi said, hoping that they were indeed far enough away. Okay then, Chiharu. Detonate the mine, she said before she covered her ears, an action that was shared by Achiko and Gran Torino. Chiharu nodded before she looked down the street and covered her ears. Not knowing how large of an explosion this will be. She closed her eyes and detonated the mine, which exploded with the force of a massive bomb. the sound of which echoed across the entire campus and caused a certain explosive Pomeranian to defend himself by saying that wasn't me, when his entire class turned to look at him. Holy shit! Achiko shouted, shocked by the sheer power of the explosion. Okay. Note for next time, Durandal said loudly, don't put all of your mines into one big mine unless you really want to blow something the fuck up. Gran Torino was just grinning with satisfaction. Yep, another job well done. Just as I thought, Izumi said as the explosion died down, noting that it was stronger than anything Katsuki had made. By themselves, the individual explosions are weak, but combine them together, they become much, much stronger. I think that's how your father's quirk worked as well. I think that he could only produce small light sources but could make them stronger by combining them, she said before she turned towards Chiharu, noticing that the girl was staring at the smoke caused by the explosion, with tears pooling under her eyes. This explains so much, Chiharu cried. This explains why his lights always started off small and got gradually brighter and brighter. He was combining them to make them stronger, she said before she suddenly punched a wall. Why the fuck did no one tell me this before? Chiharu! Izumi gasped, shocked by the girl's sudden outburst. 11 years. 11 fucking years those bastards kept giving me the wrong advice, Chiharu shouted, crying her eyes out. Make more mines, they said, concentrate on the mines as you make them, imagine them being as strong as your mother's. 11 years those bastards kept telling me to do everything but combine my minds together. Why didn't anyone tell me how my father's quirk worked? Izumi and Achiko looked at Chiharu with worry. They didn't expect their friend to suddenly break down like this. Gran Torino was worried as well, but for a completely different reason. Someone had been helping to train this young girl's quirk and sounded like they were doing a piss-poor job of it. If anything, it sounded like deliberate sabotage. But who would do such a thing? You wouldn't be able to tell me who these bastards are? Gran Torino asked. The people who worked at the care home I lived at, Chiharu replied. My mother was busy most of the time, so it was mostly me and my father. But when he died, my mother put me into a care home. Every day the care workers made us train our quirks, and every day everyone else got stronger whilst I didn't. And every day they got angrier and angrier with me. I just don't know why they only cared about how strong our quirks were. I had perfect grades at school, my behavior was better than everyone else there. But no, all they cared about was how powerful our quirks were. Gran Torino scowled. This care home didn't sound like a great place, especially basing the worth of the children there on the strength of their quirks. That wasn't right. Plus daily quirk training? That wasn't something they were supposed to be doing. Not one bit. Maybe a little investigation into this care home was in order. Mizu already had his sights on Eldora Middle School after what happened to Izumi last year. What's one more target to give to the mad rodent? Hey, don't worry. You are at UA now. You won't have to suffer any more of that crap, Gran Torino said with a comforting smile. If you want to, we can call it quits today. No, Chiharu said, wiping the tears away from her eyes and shaking her head. I need to figure out how to use my quirk safely. I can't go about causing massive explosions like that. Gran Torino smirked. Good. That's a good mindset to have. Even if you're not training to become a hero, learning how to use your quirk safely is important, he said before he looked out towards the T-junction. What was left of it anyway? I'll find us somewhere else to practice. Also, Achiko, your weight training equipment has arrived, so we should be able to find out your limits. Achiko nodded. Thank you. Don't think much of it. I'm just here to help you zygotes get ready for the real world, Gran Torino said. Now come on. I'll take you to the new training ground. You okay? Izumi asked as she helped Chiharu up. I'm fine, Chiharu replied. It's just, I had no idea how strong I was. I always thought my quick was only going to be useful as party poppers or for fireworks. Not full-on destruction like that. I may need some time to think after this. But thank you, Izumi. Thank you so much for helping me. You're welcome, Izumi replied with a smile as they followed Gran Torino to the next testing area. After some experimentation, they managed to find both Achiko's limits and the safe limit for Chiharu. And the results were damn terrifying. For Chiharu, she focused on reducing the strength of her mines to the point that they were no stronger than the mines UA uses sometimes for the sports festival. Once she had gotten that figured out, they then found out how many she could lay, which was around 200 to 300. With 50 to 75 being the limit for reasonably lethal mines. Which, whilst it doesn't sound like much, is still a lot of mines. That are also invisible and undetectable. Even Chiharu was terrified of just how strong she was. Achiko, on the other hand, had managed to discover her limit by lifting up a large number of robots. It was about the same weight as the ship she picked up and threw at the USJ. Not only that, but they found out that she could break up the items she picked up by pulling them in opposite directions and still be able to control all the individual chunks. Also, she vomits rainbows when she goes over her limit. That was something to be wary about. When their time was up, the 3 girls and 1 robot headed back to the changing room. Izumi wrote down today's findings in her notebook, noting just how much stronger her friends were. Chiharu was a walking mine layer, whilst Achiko was a bit like the protagonist of Control, just 10 times stronger. Whilst this information was useful, there was still one small question: how did Achiko get so strong with, by her account, not much training? She trained for UA, yes, but the absurdity of her strength is just absurd. How do you get that strong when the largest object you ever lifted was a truck and you only regularly lift large bags full of stones and barrels of water? Was it something to do with her biology? Was her body just more adapted to using her quirk? Hey Izumi, Achiko said, you're muttering again. Izumi gulped and covered her mouth. Sorry. It's okay. We all have our little quirks, Achiko said. I'm surprised how much I was able to improve my quirk, and I had no idea that my limit was so large. Yet Chiharu added, thanks to you, I now know how to make my mind stronger. You're welcome, Izumi said with a smile, glad that she was able to help someone with their quirk. So, now that your quirk has been improved, what are you going to do? Durandal asked. I'm not sure yet, Chiharu replied. I know I want to stay in the management course, but I also want to show the world what I can do now and show those bastards who said my quirk was weak who's strong now. Izumi nodded. I'm sorry you had to live in such a toxic environment. Prior to coming here, my old school was not great towards me. For the longest time, I thought I was quirkless, and I wasn't treated well because of it. So I know what it's like to be perceived as useless by those around you. You were a late bloomer? Chiharu said, sounding surprised. Gods, I'm sorry to hear that. To spend so long thinking that you were quirkless. I can't even fathom how that would feel like. Well, it's over now, Izumi said with a smile. I have a quirk now, and I'm on my way to achieving my dream. I've received a lot of help to get here, so if I can help someone else in return, I'll take it. Chiharu smiled. Thank you, Izumi. When I first decided to be your manager, I didn't think I'd see much till much later. But now, you've helped me improve my quirk. I promise you, I'm going to help you become the best hero you can be. Even if all I can really do is help manage your hero career and image. Izumi beamed, glad to have been of help to Chiharu. Izumi, don't you have Durandal's hardware upgrade to get to? Achiko asked. Oh, right. The hardware upgrade. I can't miss that, Izumi said before she rushed off with Durandal. I'll see you two later, she said. Achiko and Chiharu waved her off. The two quickly arrived at the support workshop, where Mei was waiting for them. She wasted no time in commencing the hardware upgrade. The upgrades Mei was doing to Durandal were, well, everything. All the internal hardware was being replaced with up-to-date replacements, custom made by Mei herself. And yes, they did have to give his schematics to her so that she could make the hardware upgrades. The only things she wasn't tampering with were the positronic brain, Quirk emulator, and the MIWR. She wasn't going to mess about with a positronic brain, not when there was an AI using it. She didn't know about the emulator, and the MIWR was beyond her current expertise. Powerloader was on standby, watching her work. He was there just to make sure Mei didn't try and tamper with Durandal whilst she was upgrading him. Overall, the upgrade took around an hour to finish. And done. May said as she stepped away from Durandal. The new hardware has been installed. Thank you, Durandal said as he leapt down from the work table. There's definitely an improvement in my shell's functions. You really know your stuff. Hey, I've even gotten more data storage in here. I'm glad you like it, May said. I've pretty much improved everything in your body. You should have a 10% improvement in the efficiency of most of your systems. Your reactor has undergone a major improvement. Increased output and improvements to the coolant system should be half the speed at which the reactor overheats. Sadly, I couldn't speed up the reactor cooling down once it overheats, so that's unchanged. But everything else has been improved, she said, although I must ask, why was all of Durandal's hardware so out of date anyway? Durandal was quick to reply, my AI may have been made recently, but my shell wasn't. It was actually made 11 years ago. But due to legal disputes, they couldn't use it, let alone tell anyone about it. It was only recently that they were cleared up and they could use this body. Which was when I was installed into it. I don't think they even bothered to update my hardware, he explained, and don't worry about getting into trouble. I think they've completely forgotten about me. Well, that's good to hear. May said with a smile. Oh yes, I have a gift for you. She said before she rushed over to another work desk and picked up what looked like the handle to some kind of tool. She then grabbed an odd-looking tool bit with two alignment blades and attached it to the front of the handle, followed by her performing a few checks. Izumi couldn't help but notice 3 blue lights shining out of the front of it. May Power Loader said, looking worried, when did you make a plasma cutter? I didn't. May replied with a smile, it's a combination stun gun / laser cutter designed to look like a plasma cutter. I designed it to feed off of the energy from Durandal's reactor to power it. Power Loader shook his head. Of course. You made me a gun? Izumi asked, looking surprised. May nodded. No, I made you a cutting tool. Thought you might need it. The stun mode can be used to bring down villains from afar, just in case you can't get close to them. And you can use the cut mode to dismember any robots you may come across, Dead Space style. Just like the Battle of Hoth Rig. Izumi nodded. She had read up on the Battle of Hoth Rig when she was researching Paxton. It was a rather embarrassing loss for Avalon. One of Paxton's deadliest robots, Harbinger, was going about with a commando team of robots destroying oil rigs and were having a lot of luck, up until they reached Hoth Rig. The workers there fought back with cutting tools, which they used to cut the attacking robots' limbs off. A third of the crew were sadly killed, but they managed to destroy the entire attacking force, including Harbinger, who was embarrassingly the first one taken out. Izumi, say yes, Durandal said we can use it to replace the anti-armor pistol we have loaded in the MIWR. We're unlikely to use it anyway. Durandal did have a point. She probably wasn't going to ever use the anti-armor pistol anyway. She didn't see herself becoming a gunslinger like Snipe, plus having a weapon that didn't require the user to carry ammo around would be useful if she ever needed to use it. Plus there's what happened at the USJ, where she broke a finger just to destroy one robot, which also destroyed the top part of the ship they were on. Having another, less destructive means to bring one down would be useful if she ever had the misfortune to meet another one, because right now, she was unsure if she was strong enough to smash one up easily. Paxton's robots were designed to be sturdy and difficult to break. Plus it might prove useful for rescue work. Cut something up to make it easier and safer to remove. Okay, if it'll replace something I won't really use, Izumi said, still unsure if she would ever need to use it. Great. May said right now it is still in the early stages of development, so you should be able to get off about 10 shots in quick succession before Durandal's reactor overheats. Maybe a few more if you're careful with your fire rate. But I'm sure I can make a few upgrades. Later thought, I'm currently preparing my babies for the sports festival. If you need help training with it, just ask me, Power Loaded added as he took the cutter from May. I'd rather you have trained with this thing first, before you add it to your equipment. Yeah, that's probably for the best, Izumi added. So, is there anything else you need? May asked as she zipped up to Izumi. Maybe some new gloves or reinforced shoes? Maybe there's something I can make for your classmates. Izumi edged back slightly from May. No, I'm fine right now. I've got more than enough gear for now. Come on. There's got to be something I can make for you. May said enthusiastically, please, I have to make something for you. She said, tears starting to fall from her eyes despite her smile, which was starting to look more and more forced. May. Izumi said calmly, are you alright? She asked, sounding worried. May tried her best to look calm, but her tears betrayed her, and she knew it. Within seconds she broke down, leaping forwards and hugging Izumi as she cried, I just can't do this. I need to be able to make something to help protect people. I just have to. She cried, you all got hurt during the USJ, and my parents dash. I saw them in the hospital, how broken they were. I don't want to lose them or anyone, not again. Not again. Izumi put her arms around May and patted her on the back. She could understand what the normally cheerful girl was going through. She had already lost her birth mother and came dangerously close to losing her new one. It was understandable that she would want to make something to help protect those close to her, which sounded like it included Class 1A. May, I know you want to help us, but sometimes the best way to help is by not helping, Izumi replied. Much to May's surprise, we're still training to become heroes, so we're not entirely sure what we can fully do with our quirks or what support equipment we may need. You can't overload someone with gear, especially if it ends up interfering with their quirk in some way or doesn't mix well with their chosen way of fighting. She said you wouldn't give someone like Momo power armor, or Toru a jetpack. They wouldn't work well with their quirks or their preferred fighting style. But don't worry, you'll have your chance to make gear for us, just allow us time to find out what we need, okay? May was quiet for a few moments, only making the occasional quiet sob as she thought over what Izumi had told her. Okay, she eventually said, breaking off the hug a few moments later, I'm sorry about that. I just couldn't sit by and let you go into a battle like that again without something to help keep you safe. Hopefully we won't have to, Izumi said. The pros are looking into it and tracking down those responsible. We shouldn't have to worry about them. May nodded as she wiped her tears away. I hope so. I've already lost everything once, I don't want to go through that again. Izumi put her hand on May's shoulder and gave a gentle squeeze. Don't worry. Snipe and Kana will be back before you know it. May nodded. Yeah, they will, she said with a smile. So, is there anything else you need? Not at the moment, Izumi replied, shaking her head. I need to get changed out of my gym uniform and head back to the dorm. Okay, I'll see you later then, May said. Yep, I'll see you later, Izumi said before she turned and left the workshop. Once Izumi had left, May rushed over to her workbench and removed a cover, revealing a gray half-sphere with several wires and lights on it. To anyone else, the half-sphere would have looked unassuming. But those who knew about AI and their development, they would know it for what it really was. An AI core used for making AIs. It wasn't a positronic brain, so she wasn't breaking any major laws, and UA students were permitted to develop AIs. But it wasn't a main part of the curriculum and only third years ever attempted it. Powerloader was impressed that May, a first-year student, was able to develop a fully functional AI within her first week at UA. She was shockingly good with robotics. Kana was right, May was a prodigy when it came to building things. May stroked the AI core affectionately as if it were a pet. She then reached for a rolled-up blueprint and unfolded it, revealing a partially drawn design. Alright, Isaac. Let's build you a body. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 21. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.